particularly when you have more than one set of double letters in a word, things like aggressive, it's easy to forget, it's like, where do these double letters go? Also things with affixes. And just, again, with English, pulling from so many different languages and language roots for its words, there's always rules that we have that we wind up breaking when it comes to certain spellings of words. So here's some of the most common ones.
Spelling in English can be a problem. There seem to be exceptions to every rule. There are so many words and spellings to remember. One word I always had a problem with was across. It was a problem because it's a really common word. I even misspelled it on a job application. I didn't get the job and noticed it later. It's probably not the only reason I didn't get the job. Still, it couldn't have helped. It's the double letters that give me a problem. There's a double S, but no double C. So I started paying more attention to double letters. It's really helped me improve my spelling. In this lesson, I'll tell you about some common spelling problems and commonly misspelled words. Be sure to keep track of the words and issues that give you problems. If you keep a list of words that give you problems, it can help you improve your spelling. You should also get in the habit of using a dictionary. When you're not sure how to spell a word, look it up.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because it seems like I probably should do this as well. There's words that I will have trouble with over and over again. And there's certain words, I think we'll all agree on some, that's just like, that can't be the way you spell that. It looks weird when you see it on paper or you see it on screen. And there's, that's probably something, a habit I'm going to start picking up. Whenever I come across a word that I'm like, I don't know how to spell this. And I'm telling you what, even though I have, pretty good grip on the English language and I'm speaking it for 47 years, there's things that, and maybe even cover this too, you spell so badly that even spell check doesn't know what you're trying to spell. And that's another problem, is that we rely a lot on things like spell check and auto, generating words and grammar, like in Word, which I would tell you, use, particularly if you're writing like a formal letter. If you're writing a cover letter, or you're sending a letter to somebody, always use the spell check and editing features there. You know what? I might not have assigned this yet. Thank you, Jessica, for mentioning that. I will make sure that it's assigned to everybody. Off to misspell words. Okay, assigned to the entire class. Matt's language arts class. Okay, give that a second and it should show up. Let me know if you still have any issues, if anybody does not get that lesson. And we'll skip her little intro here. But, again, when there's those common words that you run into that you're constantly trying to remember how to spell,
welcome to the spelling in
consider
English
making a list of them, and that will get easier over time to address those certain issues.
I told you that double letters give me a problem. Some words are spelled with one letter, and some words are spelled with two. That can cause spelling problems. There are also some words that look like two words joined together. Those words can cause problems too. Here's a list of commonly confused words where double letters or compound words cause a problem. Click on each word to see more about how it's used and what problems people have with spelling.
These are some of the ones that I've run into trouble with. I'll tell you one right here is occasion, right? Because I tend to think there's a double S in there as well.
The double C and single S in occasion can cause spelling errors.
Yeah. So that's one for me that I have trouble with. Does anybody see one on this list that they have trouble with from time to time? Embarrass is another one. I always forget there's the double R. It does seem oftentimes, when you have that double letter, there's just something in our brains that want to have more than one. set. So like parallel, you want to throw another L on the end of parallel. Necessary, yeah, Levon, that's one. You tend to think there's like two C's in there sometimes, or just one S, right? That's usually a tricky one. So what do they say about necessary?
Necessary. Needed. The single C and
Yeah,
double
no.
S in necessary sometimes cause spelling problems.
Yeah, so and like I said, there are words that we all have trouble with, and we all look at that. It's like, no way, man, that's not the way you spell that. That can't be. So simple list here. For me, occasion is one. Again, embarrass is one I kind of probably recommend maybe. And I'm probably gonna start thinking it's like I have more problems than I do the longer I look at this list. But you understand, right? When those double letters appear, there's just something in your brain's like there's got to be more than one set in here, or am I using the right set of double letters? Yeah, so that's something to think about. Make a mental note, or even keep a little notebook of words that I do not know how to spell, or I have trouble spelling when it comes time to spell it, and that'll help you out. I think I've mentioned this in the past. In your test, you may have some questions on just spelling, spelling rules and things like that. When you are writing, as long as you are clear that on the writing portion of the GED exam, spelling does not count. So if you put a double S in occasion, nobody's going to say that and or see that and mark you off a point or whatever for misspelling a word. As long as they have a clear idea of what you're saying, then a spelling issue isn't going to be any great concern for the writing portion of the GED exam. All right, so let's keep moving though.
Which sentence has a misspelled word?
All right, so, and this is where it gets tricky, in trying to identify a word as you're reading it. You can glance over stuff, well, just like, I won't have any trouble understanding the message here, even with a misspelled word, but can I locate it? So here, it's the beginning of the movie was fun, right? We need two double N's in between those I's. Beginning, right? That's almost like, yeah, benigning, I think is
Great job.
spelled.
The word beginning should have a double N. The
Yep.
beginning of the movie was fun.
So there you go. But this is a good exercise for that too. Can you find that within a sentence, which one's misspelled? There we go.
You know that letters represent sounds, but English isn't very consistent. The sound and letter combinations aren't always the same. Sometimes words end in A-B-L-E, and sometimes they end in I-B-L-E. The letters E-R can sometimes sound just like A-R. The letter C can sound like an S, and sometimes pronunciations change. People in one place might pronounce a word differently than people somewhere else. All these things can cause spelling errors. Click on each of these commonly misspelled words to find out what they mean and what causes spelling errors.
Yeah, I'm from West Virginia, from the Appalachian Mountains. So, and there's a word right there, Appalachian, that depends on where you are in this country, the way people pronounce it. If you live in the Appalachian Mountains, you probably say Appalachian. If you don't, you probably say Appalachian. And absence, difference, interesting. That's one interesting. We tend to run together a little bit. And again, regional dialects and accents all will change how, like realize. We tend to soften that Z sound a lot and make it sound more like an S. Imaginary. There's more of that E sound with the AR than there is the AR sound. You don't say imaginary. or particularly if you start talking fast or you're using it within a sentence, we don't always enunciate things. Criticize, right? We tend to soften that Z there as well. Believe, that BE sound at the beginning can very easily be mistaken for like an instead of B. So that's a good list here. Island, why do we have ISLAND? Why is that island? Herbs. Everywhere else, I think, in the English speaking world, they'll say herbs, right? They actually pronounce the H, but particularly in US English, we don't use that H sound for herbs. But yeah, there's stuff that, again, we break the rules all the time. Ache, if you're just learning English and you're learning the rules of spelling and pronunciation, you would not look at ACHE and think that sounds like ache, right? But cemetery is another one with the C sound at the beginning. Also, all of those E's, we tend to say Terry, which might be more confused with an A sound over an E sound. So something to consider. February, I always try to announce that a little, trying to get that sort of U sound in there, February, a little bit as my enunciation. That's just something else, over the years, coming from, West Virginia, trying to work on my accent a little bit, because if you heard me when I was 18 or 19, you'd probably, have a different opinion of me than you would today. And that's unfortunate. A lot of people will, sort of, form their opinion about you by the way you speak. So it's another reason to sort of, learn that sort of proper English. But yeah, cemetery is a great one. Familiar. All of these are very easily confused. And most of that has to do with the way we pronounce them. So that's the first kind of indication. When we're thinking about spelling it, we think about how we pronounce it. Let's keep going here, see what we got next.
Which sentence has a misspelled word?
So here it is, I bought a new wall calendar.
Calendar.
Yeah, because that should be AR at the end. But again, that's one of those commonly, the way we pronounce things, the way things sound when we put them together, very hard to distinguish sometimes. So calendar, which we, we don't, we soften those sounds a little bit, and it's easy to mistake them.
Great job! The word calendar should end with DAR. I bought a new wall calendar.
And the same thing applies what we've done in the past with not just, one word, but, like two words together, and contractions. So particularly with could've, should've, and would've have that V sound, but we often soften that and can very easily be mistaken as an A sound. So it sounds like shoulda, coulda, or woulda, or should've, would've, could've. But the only correct contraction there is putting, apostrophe VE. It's the only real construction that those two words have together is could have or would have, right? So again, our pronunciation of those together is where we run into trouble.
Do you remember what an affix is? It's a beginning or an ending that's added to a word. A beginning affix is called a prefix, and an ending is called a suffix. Sometimes adding prefixes and suffixes causes problems with spelling, especially if the word changes in an irregular way when there's an affix. Click on each word to learn its meaning and see how the affix affects the spelling.
So we'll go through just a few of these. Argument, we'll start there.
Argument. A disagreement or reasons for an opinion. The word argue ends with an E, but you remove it when you add the ment ending.
Another one that you can easily confuse, right? Because it's like, why do I take the E off? Why don't I just leave that on? So that can cause an issue. Fourth, we talked about this a little bit before.
Fourth. In a list, after third. The TH ending doesn't change the word for, but because there is no U in 40, the word fourth is sometimes misspelled FORTH.
Yeah, and why do we do that? I don't know. But we know four is spelled FOUR. 40 is spelled FORTY. But fourth is FOURTH. I'm sure there's a reason somewhere, but it's beyond me, why we change it for 40, but not for four or fourth. But you can see where the confusion comes from. Ninth, I'm sure they're talking about the removal of the E for nine, right? N-I-N-E. But for ninth, we remove the E and put TH. Changing, right? We remove the E for the ing ending. Noticeable, however, we keep the E. Let's see what it says about that.
Able to be seen or noticed. When you add the able ending to notice, you keep the E, even though it causes an unusual EA spelling.
Right, we talked about that some before as well. Let's see here. Government is one because we tend to, that N and M sound together. It's hard to sort of distinguish. If we're speaking fast, we just kind of go government and overlook that N. And so we kind of forget about that when it comes time to spell. And again, that's an affix, right, for govern, and then you put ment on the end. M-E-N-T is the suffix for that. Environment is the same type of thing, right? The environ is the root word. M-E-N-T is the suffix. So let's see here. Probably. So probably, right, the root would be probable with the E at the end, which we remove for the Y. And again, it's just in some cases where we break those rules or have new ones. But again, you can always come back and look at this list in detail if you want to get more explanation. They're not really giving you an explanation. They're just kind of explaining the rules. So let's...
Unfortunately, in a way that's unlucky or not good. When you add the ly ending to fortunate or unfortunate, you keep the E.
Right. Where in other cases where you'd use the ly, like right above it, and truly, right? The root word is true, T-R-U-E. But here you remove the E and just add the ly. So there you go. Same thing with probably, right? You remove the E, add the ly. So those rules are kind of inconsistent for certain reasons. Let's keep going here and take a look at the next question.
Which sentence has a misspelled word?
So I had an argument with my friend, right? So we would remove the E in argument. So it would just be A-R-G-U-M-E-N-T. Yeah, to spell argument.
Great job. The word argument should not have an E after the U. I had an argument with my friend.
Okay, and that takes us to our 8 practice questions.
Very good work on those exercises.
All right, so let's take about 10 minutes here you guys work on your own through those. Then we'll take a look at the answers about 13 after or so. So go ahead and see if you can work through them. And I'm here if you need me. Go. Oh, that's wrong. Okay, here we go. So starting here, what sentence has a misspelled word? So she tried to embarrass me with my old baby photos. This is what we were talking about, right? Embarrass is misspelled here. Submit, right? Should be 2 R's and 2 S's. So that is one for me that I sometimes have trouble with. So Embarrass. Yep, embarrass. And misspelling here. An iron. Yeah, an iron gate runs around the cemetery, right? So we need a C to spell cemetery at the beginning instead of that S. And that's one of those ones where particularly CE, when put together, a lot of times we'll make a S sound rather than a K, like C sound. Right? A soft C. Cemetery. Okay. And then my uncle works for the city government, right? That's another one we talked about, that soft N and M consonant sound together. Yeah, my uncle works for the city government. So we need GOVERNMENT. This one, I think, while it's the sound that will trip us up some, just think about that root word, right? Govern. So that will help you kind of keep that one straight, that you still need that N with government.
Excellent. You got the.
Keep going here. All right. And this is, I have never been good at parallel parking. We need a double L, PARALL E-L. Now that would be like, I think based on, most of our spelling rules, if you only had the single L there, it would be like parallel, right? You'd have more emphasis on the A sound.
Yeah.
Parallel. Okay. So parallel. Our next one. So everyone knows that vampires are imaginary. So imaginary, as we talked about earlier, is going to be spelled IMAGINAR. Another good example, between, you spell it the wrong way and you still say imaginary, or, you spell it the right way and it's imaginary. There's very little difference in that ERY sound that we can pick up on. So imaginary, NARY. And this one, you can actually, it just looks a little weird. So it's absence makes the heart grow fonder. So here we need SENCE for absence, right? So we've got that soft S sound again that we use CE for instead of SENSE. So absence. Okay. And always, right? So typically, like words like already or always that have that AL sound at the beginning, you're not going to have the two L's. You'll have one L, always, already. So there, ALWAYS would be the correct spelling. And then finally, Z's, right? DISEASE is how you spell disease. That's much closer to deceased, but would have a C there instead of S. But yeah, for spelling disease, it is DISEASE. But that I sound, right, could very easily be mistaken for a DE because it's not disease, right? It's deceased or disease. And there's another instance where you have a harder S sound that's closer to Z, right? So disease, you think about that, almost has that Z sound with the DIS configuration there. So, all right, there is our 8. Let's see what Maria says at the end here.
Did you learn a little bit about spelling in this lesson? Spelling can take time to learn. I really hope you keep track of words that give you trouble. You can keep a spelling notebook where you write down words that are hard for you to spell. Write down the definition and write the word in a sentence or two. The best way to improve is to study the words that you have trouble remembering. It also helps to put words into groups, like I did in this lesson. What words give you trouble because of double letters? What words give you trouble because of how the sounds are spelled? What words give you trouble because of prefixes or suffixes? Are there other ways you can group words? Grouping things is a good strategy for learning. And remember to use the dictionary if you're not sure about a spelling. Click results to see how you did on the questions.
Yeah, it's same, what I've said before. When it comes to the ability to use a dictionary, if you're sitting at home and you're writing a letter, or you're on the computer, you have means of being able to look up the word. What we're doing here largely is for preparation for your exam when you're not going to be able to go look up the definition of a word or go look up how to spell it. So we want to have skills to deal with that. And I really, this is something I'm thinking about adopting, because there are words that I have trouble with. So I rather than like keeping a notebook, I think on my phone, like on the notes app, every time I have to sit there and stop and think about a word, like embarrass or something like that, I'm going to put that into my, make a new note and have that there so that I can actually review it from time to time. And then, yeah, so, you know, think about where your trouble lies. And for most of us, it's going to be the same types of things. Those double letters, right? And those cases where we use a spelling that sounds very similar to another letter, right? So the CE construction or Z's instead of S's and things like that. So when you come across those in spelling, take a second to think about it. Any questions for today?
I don't have a question, but I told Rachel already I'm gonna miss tomorrow and Wednesday.
I'm sorry, you're going to be out Wednesday?
Tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday.
Tomorrow and Wednesday. Okay, no worries. You know, as always, we'll have the lesson assigned for you, so you can pick that up and do it whenever. And if you have any questions, you know, when you're back in the class, just let us know. Okay. Okay. Anything else? All right. So we'll be moving on. We'll be doing some RLA reading tomorrow. And we'll also in social studies be looking at some maps and working on some civics and government stuff as well. And then getting closer to taking some practice tests for social studies. All right. So we'll call it a day here. And I'll see you guys tomorrow, 12:15 for social studies. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.